KPH 103.5, la voz hispana de Connecticut.
Hello. You're listening to WNHH 103.5 FM via La Voz Hispana Radio from downtown New Haven, and we're streaming live YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And this is Norma Rodriguez Reyes, your host in K-Pasa. We have here with us today Kristen Cusato, and she's the Director of Communications for the Connecticut chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. Thank you so much, Christine, for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, many of you may know Christine because Christine was a Channel 8 reporter for 11 years. She was a journalist for more than 24 years, and she switched her career when her mom got diagnosed with dementia. There are over 80,000 people living in Connecticut with Alzheimer's and twice as many caregivers. Hispanic Latinos are 1.5 times as likely to develop Alzheimer's and less likely to go to the doctor. And that today, this interview is going to give us a lot of answers to the questions that are really are going to educate us about Alzheimer's. We're going to talk about the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia because some people have a tendency of using it, as if it's one and the same. And then we're going to talk about the 24/7 hotline. And we have education classes in Spanish on the 10 signs of the disease, understanding Alzheimer's and dementia, healthy living for your brain and body, and more. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we are going to be talking about today. Christine, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became the director of this chapter for Alzheimer's.
Director of Communications for the Connecticut chapter. We're a national organization, so there are Alzheimer's Association chapters all over the country, and we are the Connecticut chapter. So we serve the 80,000 people, as you mentioned, people living with Alzheimer's in this state, and then all the caregivers that are involved. There are spouses, there are children, there are so many people who are caregivers, paid caregivers, other relatives who are helping, neighbors. We also take care of people who are concerned about the disease. Like, what can you do now, which we can talk about a little bit later. What can you do now to reduce your risk of dementia later on? So I am very pleased to be in this position, and in part I'm in this position because, as you mentioned, my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. She was diagnosed with dementia in 2009, and she was my best friend. So it was really hard for me to watch her change and go away really slowly. But through that process, it really gave me a new purpose. So now I talk to caregivers and I share information and come to places like you and share information to make sure that you guys know where to go if this happens to your family.
Thank you so much. So tell us, what is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia?
And that's a really good question because a lot of people aren't quite sure. So dementia is the umbrella term of symptoms. So it's what you experience with these memory changes. So it's forgetting where you're going to or coming from, even if you've gone to the same grocery store for 20 years. It's having your keys in your hand but not knowing what the keys do. It's getting lost. It's not necessarily remembering that you asked the same question 3 or 4 times in the same hour. It's not knowing the processing of things. So that's the experience of dementia. Alzheimer's is what happens in your brain, the biology that causes dementia. So Alzheimer's is the most common cause of dementia. But there are other types of dementia, like Lewy body, which my mom had. There's something called vascular, frontotemporal, FTD. So there are many different types of dementia, but dementia is the overall umbrella term.
So what's Lewy body?
Lewy body is what my mom had, and that presents a little bit different. They all present a little bit differently. So my mom was having hallucinations. In fact, one time she thought that my brother, she said, "Your brother and you, I swear you were in the living room watching TV with me." but we weren't even in the same state. So she was kind of having a hallucination, thought that she saw us there. She had some gait issues, so stepping, falling a lot. And Lewy body sometimes hits you when you're younger. So my mom was diagnosed at 61, but the problems had started a couple of years before that.
Okay, and then you mentioned the other two.
Yeah, there's a vascular type, which means if you have a stroke or something like TIA, like some sort of head injury, that could lead to vascular dementia. And there's something called frontotemporal, which kind of affects the front lobe of your brain. And that presents as, when some people, they don't have an editor, they don't have a filter, they just say whatever comes to their mind, that kind of happens there. There's no controlling that. So that sometimes happens with people with frontotemporal dementia.
Okay. So you have a 24/7 helpline. Tell us about that.
We do. So this is something that anybody can call at any time of the day or night, hence 24/7, and it's 800-272-3900. And the good news is this is in 200 languages. So you can call in any language. Say if you call in Spanish and say, I need some help. And you can call this number to say, hey, is there a doctor in New Haven who deals with this? Or, hey, my mom is at the door and wants to go home, but she's home. How do I talk her out of it? How do I redirect? How do I calm her down, but yet make sure she's safe? So that helpline, you can call also and say, my family just got hit with this disease. Where do I turn? What do I start? And we can tell you about support groups. We can tell you about education classes, which are also in Spanish. We can tell you about all the different programs that we have, because we want people to know that they're not alone. We want people to realize that they don't have to go through this process alone.
Okay. Tell us about the 10 signs of the disease.
So there are a lot of things that present, right? So the problem with knowing the difference between normal aging and real memory loss concern is that people will say, oh, this is just the way it is. Everybody gets senile when you get older. But that's not the case. Not everybody has this disease. This is not a disease that everyone gets. So some of the things that you need to look for are, getting lost from coming back from a familiar place, not knowing the processing of something, like numbers go fast, so you can't do phone and you can't do checkbook. My mom was really amazing at the checkbook. And then when she got sick, she just started making all these math mistakes. So not able to pay your bills, that kind of thing. There's an issue with your brain as it changes, that your world becomes just kind of this bubble right around you. So things that are out, you have kind of a visual issue. So you might fall over curbs, or you might fall stepping into or out of the bathtub because it's white and the floor is white. You can't tell. There's a visual issue. So there's a lot of different things to think about. You could be withdrawn. Another symptom is being really withdrawn and pulling back from your favorite activities, maybe because you don't remember how to do them, or you're not, very cognizant, or you're not able to say as many things as you can say because you're having language issues or forgetting the names of things. So you may pull back and get some depression. But we definitely suggest that anybody having some serious memory issues, go to a doctor, go to a neurologist. Make sure that you can get help, because you don't have to just suffer alone.
Now, is it true that sometimes you begin to have those symptoms, but it's because you probably lack vitamin B12 injections or something like that?
Yes, that's a wonderful point. Yes. I would suggest that in the very, very beginning, go to your general doctor, your general practitioner, to get a blood workup to see if, in fact, as you mentioned, Norma, do you have a B12 deficiency? Do you have some leftover anesthesia if you had something happened at the hospital? Do you have a medication mix-up? That could be something that could also get some confusion. There's a lot of different things that can kind of show as one thing. So make sure you get your blood work done to make sure it's yes or no what it is. And if it's concern of memory, then in fact, go to a neurologist, and then call us, call the Alzheimer's Association, because we can help.
Thank you. Now tell us about the support groups for those with the disease and for the caregivers.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I don't think that anybody should go through this alone. And what's really great is that we have support groups that during COVID, obviously, we went online, right? So everything is online, in Zoom or phone call. But it was actually worked out pretty well for us because that way, if people could go to a support group, they could just step into the other room versus actually leaving the house and getting someone to watch your person or, driving in traffic or whatever. So we have a lot of support groups now online. And support group is where you can just be you and ask any question, and everybody there gets it. And everybody there is saying, oh, try that with your wife or your mom, or try that with your husband, or that's a great idea. Oh, do I say that? How do I get out of this idea? Oh, did you try that medication? So it's a really great idea. Like, it's a sharing environment where people can say, hey, I didn't know that. And it just makes me feel good to know that everyone here is going through the exact same thing. And it makes you feel less alone. So the support groups are very, very important. Plus, we have support groups not only for caregivers, but for people who have the disease. So we have these groups where the husband will have the disease and the wife is a caregiver, or the opposite way around. And they all go to groups, and they are all couples who get it also. So it's really good that we have all these groups that you can just be with other people who understand what's going on. And you can also call that 800 number to find out about where the support groups are or what's a good time for you, because they're also in Spanish and English too.
Good. Now, what is the difference between dementia and normal aging? Because many times I begin to feel, oh my goodness, I think I have all this stuff that they're talking about.
Yep.
So what's the difference between normal aging and dementia?
So there's a lot of different things, but I can tell you for one thing, when you get, let's see, I like the car analogy. So you have your keys, right? So you lose your keys. You put them down somewhere and you have no idea where they are, right? Everybody does that.
All the time.
All the time. But having your keys in your hand and not knowing what they do, what they're for, that's a big thing, right? Or being in the car and knowing that R means something and D means something on the shift, on the stick or on the drive shaft, but not knowing which is which. And this is why in some point you hear a lot of stories about somebody who crashed into the window of the drugstore, right?
Yes.
They went forward and not reverse because that was confusing to them. They didn't know which was which.
Yes.
So I think that losing your car in the parking lot, which also happens all the time, that doesn't necessarily mean you have Alzheimer's dementia. Getting in your car, maybe not being able to get home. And that's the home you've lived in for 20 years, and that's the store you've been going to. That's a concern.
Yeah.
Things like that.
No, I remember I was director of the Outwater Senior Center prior to this life here. And so, we had a lot of seniors, and some of them, as old as 90 years old, and they were pretty healthy. But there were a few that, they would go off and be on Congress Avenue, and not know where they were.
Right.
And then the whole story, the 90-year-old, and after that he stopped driving because he actually took, and instead of doing the instead of doing the what is it, he just hit the
gas.
Hit the gas instead of hitting the brakes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
ran into his wife's hairstylist place.
Yeah, that happens. But so you've seen that too, and that's another concern we could talk about is wandering. So a lot of people, like 70% of people with this disease, will wander. What does that mean? Someone in Bridgeport last year, I think she wandered and she was never found, And it's that you wander because I think, we contend that they're lost in their brain and they're confused, and they need like a touchstone or something that's familiar to them. So sometimes they wandered back to where they used to live 20 years ago. Sometimes they wander to their old job, their old school. So we train police officers also to know how to look for people. And so if someone ends up wandering, you need to give the police officers, give the searchers all that information. What's their nickname? Where did they used to go to school? Where's their favorite store? Because they may go back there. Because the thing about Alzheimer's and dementia is that short-term memories go right away, but longer-term memories tend to remain. So if you ask someone about the old days, they may be very familiar and be able to talk quite wonderfully about their school days, say, or when they got married, or where they used to live, or where they grew up. But if you can ask them what they had for breakfast, or if you can ask them who that small child is that keeps coming over, they might not know. So there's a difference in that.
Yes. So tell us about June being Alzheimer's month.
June is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, and we really ask people to take care of their brains. And we always say this is interesting. Everything good for the heart is good for the brain. So, every beat of the heart helps pump blood to the brain, obviously. So we ask people to really take care of themselves and take care of their brain. And there are 10 ways to love your brain. Shall I go through them?
Yes.
There's a lot.
Please do.
All right. See, but some of the stuff you guys know, it's just kind of typical stuff that you would do anyway, but just really focusing on it. Because what we're finding out from research is that there could be changes on our brain up to 20 years before symptoms occur. So if we now can do these lifestyle changes to reduce our risk of this disease, wouldn't that be amazing? So there's a lot of research now on lifestyle changes. And one of the research studies they're doing is called the U.S. Pointer Study. And it's incorporating things like on this list. Exercise, right? Get a certain amount of exercise several times a week. Do not smoke. Smoking is very bad, obviously, for your lungs and your heart, but it's also bad for your brain. Make sure you eat really healthy food. Make sure you try to incorporate the Mediterranean or the MIND diet, which is like leafy green vegetables, avocados, fish, that kind of stuff. Make sure you try to incorporate nuts, that kind of thing. Another one is hit the books. So they say sometimes if you learn something new, or if you learn another language, or if you're bilingual, that'd be helpful. Or if you learn, take up a new topic or a new subject, they say that's good. Also, making sure that your heart and your numbers are good, like your blood sugar numbers, your blood pressure numbers. Make sure all those are in check. That's very crucial. Another one is when you're biking, or if you're, in places where you might have, make sure that you wear your seatbelt in the car. Make sure you wear your helmet if you're biking, right? Make sure that you take care, because there is evidence that if you have head injury, that later on it could lead to your increased risk of dementia. Another thing is really important, and I feel like so few of us get enough sleep. Sleep is critical. So get your Z's, because when we sleep, it's good for, resting our body. But also, I learned this, the cerebral spinal fluid can actually clean out some of the toxins in your brain. So it's actually kind of a cleansing thing for your brain. So getting deep sleep is very important. Also, taking care of your mental health. And that's been really hard during COVID too, right? COVID has been bringing a lot of folks down. There's a lot of issues around mental health right now. So definitely take care of your mental health. Do what you can to relax and chill. Do what you can to, if you have a therapist, see a therapist, those kinds of things. Whatever you can do to make sure that your mental health is in a good place. And then 2 more, buddy up, stay socially interactive. So make sure that you have good conversations with your friends. Make sure you do a lot of social activities just to keep your mind spry. And then the last one is challenge yourself. Go a different way home from work. Do a different game on your phone. Challenge yourself. And you can find those on our website too, which is alz.org/CT. So those are some of the ways to try to take care of your brain now for later.
Well, so you say that up to 40% of the dementia cases could be prevented or delayed by targeting modified risk factors. Can you tell us a little bit about that,
Yeah,
please?
that's some of the things that I was just talking about just now. Okay. So really doing those kinds of things, you could actually reduce your risk, and you could, and these are things, this was proven shown in studies by the Lancet. So these are really important things to do, and it's very important also to think about things that are involved in that study, which is called the U.S. Pointer Study. And that study, and we could talk about clinical trials at some point too, and the need for people of all nationalities to get involved in clinical trials. But U.S. Pointer Study really looks at the role of exercise, eating right, social and cognitive interaction, and also more regular doctor's checks. And they're going to look at these folks for 2 years. And then after the 2-year process, they're going to see how was it? How did it work? How did it work to reduce their risk? So it's really important to think about those things now.
So what about the importance of getting diagnosed early?
Right. There are a lot of things. And that's, I think that's a concern, isn't it? Isn't it situational that some people in some cultures do not go to the doctor or do not take their loved one to the doctor because they think this is just what happens to everyone? Am I right?
Definitely.
Yeah, right. So I think that it's really important to make sure that you go to the doctor so you can get the diagnosis early. You can get involved in clinical trials. You can plan for your future. You can talk legal and financial. What do we need to worry about money-wise? And how can we keep our person stimulated so that we can stretch out and have more time with our loved one?
So I was talking about how sometimes culture, we have a tendency of seeing things very, very differently.
Yeah.
I know many years ago, it was always assumed that that was a white person's disease, not a Latino and not an African American. We didn't get that was a disease that basically, and I think it had a lot to do with maybe at that time there weren't that many Latinos here
Okay.
for us to really be able to see
Yeah.
that type of behavior. And then other people assume, that's crazy disease. That when you have that it's because you're losing it. They don't understand that that's just the process of aging.
Some,
many times.
not everyone, right? But yeah, I mean, the issue is, and those are the statistics you said off the bat. Black African Americans are 2 times as likely to develop this disease, 2 times. And Hispanic Latinos are 1.5 times as likely to develop this disease. Why? Well, some of it we know because some folks present with already some blood sugar issues or some cardiac issues, right? You present with more of those. But the point is we need to know more. And there's a lot of research now focusing on making sure that everybody in that study is not just white, right? Making sure that everybody in that study is Black African American, is Hispanic, right? We need to make sure that every culture is represented in these studies.
So how exactly does the percentage work? So when you say 1.5 get more and the African American 2%,
that means
that to in
yeah.
regular
So that
terms.
means like twice as likely, right? So for every 1 person that gets Alzheimer's who's white, 2 Black or African American will get it. For every 1 person that's white, older, 1.5. So almost 2 Latinos. So it's like almost twice as many people are getting this disease in these underserved communities.
Okay. Now, how about I know sometimes they say to you that cooking in pans, aluminum pans, or is that true?
It's a myth. Nope, it's a myth.
Okay.
That has not ever been proven. And it's a scary thing that gets out there, but cooking in metal and aluminum has never been proven or shown to have any sort of connection to the disease.
So, is there any medical that they do in order to that them are more prone to get this disease than others?
So that's a good question. I mean, age, unfortunately, is the greatest risk factor. So most of the people who are diagnosed are over the age of 65. But a lot of people are diagnosed now in their 40s and 50s. My mom was early 60s. So it's really important for the awareness to get out there and for people to know those 10 signs and to make sure it's not, just something to blow off, right? To really look into it. Because, for example, a lot of people say in their 30s and 40s, when you go to the doctor and you say, I'm having all these issues, what's the first thing they say? Oh, you're depressed. Go to therapy. Or we're having trouble in our marriage because he's not doing this. He's not hearing me. He's not listening to me. Maybe he's got some things happening in his brain, which is a brain disease that he can't control. So that's why it's really important for education for everyone, even doctors, to know what to look for, more doctors. So that's very important to think about that as well. But also, just making sure that you realize that everyone can be affected and everyone really needs to reach out and take care of themselves.
Okay. So tell us about the Walk to End Alzheimer's.
Yes.
And how we can be helpful.
Well, that'd be wonderful. So we are very excited. We have our Walk to End Alzheimer's, and it's in September this year in the fall, and it's at K-Pasa Beach in the New Haven area. We have 6 across the state, and this is where everyone comes together. And it's our biggest fundraiser because all the education classes I was telling you about, the 800 number, the support groups, they're all free of charge to everyone. So we do need to fundraise to raise money to have this happen. And so our Walks to End Alzheimer's and our The Longest Day, which is an event in June, the money raised there helps us be able to give these programs for free and care consultations. If you can call the 800 number and say, hey, my family, is dealing with this, how do you help me? We can have you sit down with somebody for an hour in Spanish or English, and we can help you guide through the entire thing. So we'd love for you guys to get involved in the walk this fall. It's alz.org/walk. And the walk is where everyone comes together, everyone holds these beautiful flowers, and you look around at the sea of flowers during the ceremony, and you see like thousands of people who get it and thousands of people who understand what you're doing. And I just want to add really quickly, because we do have this really important class coming up. We have a Spanish class, a class for Understanding Alzheimer's in Spanish on May 11th at 6 o'clock. So we would love for people to, it's virtual, so we would love for people to just get an overall understanding of the disease and find out what it's about. So if you call our 800 number, that's 800-272-3900, we can give you information to sign up for that class.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
And do you want to give the phone number again? And also, when is the class? The End Alzheimer's walk?
The walk is in September this year at Lighthouse Point Park. The class that we have coming up is May 11th at 6 o'clock. It's an Understanding Alzheimer's class in Spanish. It's virtual, and the 800 number that you can call anytime is 800-272-3900.
Thank you so much for being here
Thank you,
with us.
Norma. Appreciate it.
Okay. I want to remind you one more time that you're listening to WNHH 103.5 FM, NewHavenIndependent.org, La Voz Hispana Radio, and we're here downtown New Haven, and we're streaming live via La Voz Hispana CT, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And this is your host, Norma Rodriguez Reyes, and K-Pasa. Until next time, health, money, and love, and plenty of time to enjoy it. May we live to be 120 in good health, of course. Till next time. Thank you.
Les habla el doctor Carlos Cruz, médico autor de la columna Salud y Calidad de Vida, que se publica en el semanario La Voz Hispana con la información más actualizada para todos ustedes. Esta semana vamos a estar conversando sobre el tratamiento genético que rejuvenece las células de la piel. Los científicos afirman haber creado las células de la piel hasta 40 años más jóvenes usando una técnica similar a la que se usó para clonar a la oveja Dolly en el año 1996. Sin embargo, esta investigación de prueba de principio se llevó a cabo en laboratorio y usando la técnica para rejuvenecer la piel humana viva. No obstante, este descubrimiento podría ayudar a los investigadores a encontrar nuevos tratamientos para otras afecciones relacionadas con la salud. Los científicos utilizaron vectores virales para iniciar un proceso llamado reprogramación de células madres pluripotentes inducidas. Esto convirtió a las células de la piel de mediana edad en un estado similar al de las células madres embrionarias. También estas células mostraron capacidades de curación de heridas y producción de colágeno que son características de las células de la piel mucho más jóvenes. Sin embargo, algunos de los expertos que conversaron con la agencia de noticias médicas Medical News Today, como el doctor David Cutler, PhD de la Universidad de Emory, dijo que una afirmación tan sorprendente requiere mucha más evidencia de la que se ha presentado hasta los momentos. Pero también en Inglaterra, investigadores han logrado rejuvenecer las células de la piel de una mujer de 53 años para que sean equivalentes a la de una mujer de 23 años. Los científicos de la Universidad de Cambridge, en Reino Unido, creen que pueden hacer lo mismo con otros tejidos del cuerpo. Y el objetivo final es desarrollar tratamientos para enfermedades relacionadas con la edad, como la diabetes, patologías cardíacas y trastornos neurológicos. Así que amigos, bueno, estamos ante la presencia de nuevos avances en la medicina genética que buscan no solo el rejuvenecimiento de la piel, que sería muy buenas noticias para las damas y para los caballeros, sino que también puede ser aplicada para diferentes enfermedades y órganos que pueden ser lesionados a través del tiempo. Para mayor información pueden comunicarse con nosotros a través del correo electrónico tusaludhispana@gmail.com.
En aproximadamente la mitad de los condados de Estados Unidos, menos del 10% de los niños de entre 5 y 10 años están completamente vacunados contra el COVID-19, a pesar de ser el grupo más joven elegible. El Dr. Brennan Draxler, director de Salud Pública del Departamento de Salud y Control Ambiental de Carolina del Sur, declaró que la
Hola, ustedes nos están escuchando a través de WNHH 103.5 FM, la voz hispana radio desde Downtown New Haven. Y también nos puede ver a través de Facebook Live, YouTube y Twitter. ¿Okay? Esta es Norma Rodríguez Reyes, su anfitriona del programa ¿Qué-Pasa? Hoy tenemos con nosotros a la señorita Kristen Cusato. Ella es la directora de comunicaciones del capítulo de Connecticut de la Asociación de Alzheimer's. Muchos de ustedes quizás la conocen a ella porque ella era reportera para el Canal 8 aquí en New Haven por 11 años y es una periodista por más de 24 años. Y ella cambió su carrera cuando su madre la diagnosticaron con demencia. ¿Ok? Gracias, Kristen, por estar hoy con nosotros.
Thank you for having me.
Ok, gracias por tenerla, ¿verdad? Por favor, este programa es muy importante porque nos afecta a toda persona que nos está escuchando o que van a escuchar este programa. Porque aquí vamos a educarnos de algo que afecta mucha de nuestra gente. En los tiempos de antes, tú sabes, uno pensaba que eso es una enfermedad, lo que es demencia y Alzheimer's, que eso es una enfermedad que le dan a los gringos, a los blancos nada más, ¿ok? Pero la verdad es que de cada un gringo que tiene esa enfermedad, 1.5 de los hispanos le da esa enfermedad. Y de los afroamericanos, 2 personas por cada una que le da esa enfermedad. So, aquí estamos hablando de una situación en la cual nos va a afectar en una manera u otra. Y si tú sabes que si no nos afecta directamente, indirectamente nos puede afectar porque vamos a tener quizás amigos o hasta tías o tíos que por un lado van a afectar esto. Ok, so, dice que un momentito, por favor. A ver, esto aquí, ok. Hay 80,000 personas que viven en Connecticut con Alzheimer's y el doble de las personas que están atendiéndolo, cuidándolo. Los hispanos tienen el 1.5 más de probabilidad de desarrollar la enfermedad de Alzheimer's y menos probabilidad de ir al doctor, al médico. La gente de nosotros, lo último que quieren estar haciendo es estar yendo donde los doctores, ¿ok? Vamos ahora a hablar sobre la diferencia entre demencia y Alzheimer's. So, Christina, tell us the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's.
So dementia is the umbrella term of symptoms.
Okay, so demencia es la sombrilla, el término de sombrilla de
What they're experiencing.
de los síntomas, lo que ellos están experimentando.
Getting lost coming home from a familiar place.
A veces se pierden de venir de la casa, de un lugar familiar.
Trouble with numbers or checkbooks or bills.
Problema con los números, ¿ok? Sumar y restar, pagando sus cuentas.
Repeating the same thing over and over again.
Repitiendo lo mismo constantemente, repitiendo lo mismo.
And the frustration that comes with all of that.
Y también la frustración que viene con todo eso, no solamente para la persona que tiene la enfermedad, pero para también los que están escuchando, los que no tienen ninguna paciencia muchas veces. Mentioning how many times,
Yeah.
they don't have any patience. The people that are listening that don't have patience, that can't understand why that's happening.
Right. So that's the dementia umbrella, and then Alzheimer's is the actual disease that causes dementia.
Okay. So demencia, esa es la sombrilla, pero Alzheimer's es la enfermedad actual.
Right. And then there's other types like Lewy body and vascular.
Okay. Hay otros tipos como Lewy body y vascular y el frontal temporal,
Yes.
el cerebro, la parte del frente del cerebro.
We use those two terms because Alzheimer's is the most common type.
Y usamos esos dos términos porque Alzheimer es el tipo más común.
Right.
Okay. Now, can we talk about the importance of being diagnosed early with this disease?
Yes. Yes. It's very important to be diagnosed early so you can really plan for your future.
Okay. Lo importante de ser diagnosticado tempranamente cuando te pasa eso es para que tú puedas planear para tu futuro.
Legal and financial, your care in the future.
Legalmente, tú sabes, legalmente todas tus cuentas, financieramente y también organizar quiénes son los que te van a cuidar.
Right. And also maybe getting involved in clinical trials so you can work on things, you can see the doctor more often, and you can potentially have something that would help you.
Y lo importante de envolverse en los trials es para que tempranamente ustedes puedan lidiar con eso. So tell us about the educational classes in Spanish about the 10 signs of the disease.
We have classes in both English and Spanish.
Okay, cuéntanos sobre las clases de educación en español sobre los 10 síntomas de la enfermedad. Tenemos clases en español y también obviamente en inglés.
And that's free of charge.
Que son gratis.
And it's virtual. And we have a class coming up on May 11th.
Y es virtual y tenemos una clase en mayo 11.
And that's Understanding Alzheimer's. And that will be a Spanish-speaking class at 6 p.m.
Y eso es entendiendo la enfermedad Alzheimer. Y la clase es a las 6 de la noche.
So we would have the 800 number that would have people call to sign up.
Okay. Y las personas pueden llamar al número de el 1-800-272-3900. Okay, para si las personas que quieren ser parte de esa clase. Will they be able to just go into the system and if they're not able to be at that specific class, that they'll be able to see that class virtually?
If you call that 800 number to register, and even if you can't come, we will send you the recording.
Okay. Y también para las personas que quizás en ese día no pueden asistir a esta clase, pueden llamar ese número y ellos le envían a ustedes una grabación de esa clase.
I'd like to talk about that 800 number again, if I could.
Okay. Y me gustaría hablar nuevamente de ese número, o el 1-800-272-3900 otra vez.
People can call at any time to get support group and class information.
Okay. La gente pueden llamar cuando quieran para recibir información sobre grupos de apoyo.
And also, if they want to talk to somebody about how to go through this journey of dementia.
Y también si quieren hablar con alguien de cómo ir en esta jornada del mundo de la demencia.
How to guide someone, where to go to see a doctor, lots of things.
Cómo guiar a alguien a dónde ir para ver un doctor, muchas cosas.
So we were just the 800 number is also in 200 languages.
Y ese número de 800, el 1-800-272-3900, no es solamente en inglés y en español, sino en 200 diferentes lenguajes, ¿ok?
Yes.
Tell us about this organization and the role that you play as the communications director, and the fact that it's located in throughout
Yes.
in all the
It's all in the States.
Ya, que nos deje saber sobre esta organización y de que también está ubicada a través de los Estados Unidos en diferentes estados.
So I work for the Connecticut chapter, and there are chapters in every state, several chapters.
Yo trabajo para el capítulo de Connecticut y hay bastantes capítulos en diferentes estados.
Right. And what we do is we help, right now there are 80,000 people in Connecticut living with Alzheimer's.
Ahora mismo hay 80,000 personas que están viviendo con Alzheimer's aquí en Connecticut solamente.
And many more caregivers who are unpaid.
Y muchas más de las personas que atienden a estas personas que no se le pagan, sin pago absoluto.
And it's really hard for caregivers, so we just want to make sure that everyone knows that we are here for them and they don't have to be alone.
Y es bien difícil para la persona porque queremos que sepa que no tienen que estar lidiando solamente con este problema. Estamos aquí para ayudarle y asistirle. Thank you.
So, yes.
Let us speak a little bit about June, the month, and the conscience, and about Alzheimer's and the disease. So first, let's talk about the month of June is Alzheimer's month.
Yes. And June is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month.
Okay. So en el mes de junio es se encarga de el mes de Alzheimer's y también que uno se dé cuenta lo que está sucediendo con el cerebro.
And we know that there are things we can do now to reduce our risk later.
Okay. Y hay muchas cosas que podemos hacer ahora para reducir nuestro riesgo de que nos dé esa enfermedad.
So I'm going to list 10 of them. We'll do 3 at a time.
Ok, vamos a hablar del 10 de ellos, ¿ok?
Okay.
Pero lo vamos a hacer 3 a la vez, ¿ok?
Exercise,
Ok,
no smoking, and diet.
ok. Bueno, ejercicio, ¿ok? Eso es muy importante. El ejercicio ayuda a combatir el Alzheimer's y la demencia. Y es importante uno sudar un poco, ¿ok? So, realícese el ejercicio porque ayuda también el que el corazón esté constantemente palpitando y eso ayuda bastante a reducir el riesgo de la enfermedad. El dejar fumar, ¿ok? Es importante que... Yo sé que no es fácil, para muchos de los fumadores no es fácil, pero sería bueno el uno definitivamente decir, tú sabes que yo me quiero a mí misma, así que es importante el yo dejar de fumar para yo vivir más tiempo y también vivir saludable.
I think diet and eating the Mediterranean diet is also very important.
So, la dieta también es muy importante y especialmente como una sencilla, sana y equilibrada que sea basada en grasas y rica en verdura y frutas. Esa es la dieta mediterránea, que baja en grasa pero rica en verdura y frutas. Eso es muy importante lo que uno come para que también reduzca el riesgo de esta enfermedad.
Next, follow your heart and heads up.
Okay. El próximo es sigue tu corazón, ¿ok? La evidencia muestra que los efectos de riesgo de enfermedad cardiovascular y accidentes en el cerebro tienen un impacto negativo en su salud cognitiva, ¿ok? So, lo importante es seguir el corazón de uno. También uno tiene que usar casco, ¿ok? Para el cerebro, tiene que proteger el cerebro, especialmente cuando está guiando bicicleta o uno tiene que protegerse también de la caída, porque la caída tiene una manera de que pueden afectar el cerebro y que eventualmente le puede dar la enfermedad de Alzheimer's.
The next I would say is hit the books
Okay.
and then probably get your sleep.
Ok. Y la próxima es la educación, ¿ok? La educación a cualquier edad ayuda a combatir al Alzheimer y la demencia. La educación formal en cualquier etapa de la vida ayudará a reducir riesgo de deterioración cognitiva y demencia. Por ejemplo, tome una clase, cualquier tipo de clase. Es importante que usted vaya, lea la Biblia, porque muchas veces tú sabes, o cualquier tipo de libro que uno lea, eso le ayuda a uno, ¿ok? Entonces, la otra es la importancia de dormir, ¿ok? No dormir lo suficiente debido a condiciones como la insomnia o la apnea del sueño puede provocar problemas con la memoria y el pensamiento. So uno tiene que dormir suficientemente.
Also, I would say to buddy up and stump yourself.
Ok. So la otra es hablando con sus amigos, ¿ok? Siempre estar con gente, tener una vida social, ¿ok? So, manténse socialmente comprometido, puede apoyar la salud del cerebro. Realice actividades sociales que sean significativas para usted. Encuentre considerado ser voluntario. Es importante, ¿ok? Si usted se mantiene constantemente ocupado, y vaya, visite personas, ¿ok? O haga voluntario, trabajo voluntario, ayudándole a los niños, a los jóvenes, o en una oficina, vaya y provee, porque muchas veces los negocios no tienen dinero para pagarle, pero sí el que usted vaya a proveer servicios voluntarios, eso le ayuda bastante a su salud mental, y así entonces puede que esta enfermedad no le venga, ¿ok? Otra cosa es, which one was the last one?
Stump.
¿Ok?
Yep. And then mental health.
Ok, juegue barajas, ¿ok? O bingo, o cualquier cosa que su mente constantemente se esté moviendo de un lado a otro. So, desafíe y activa tu mente. Construye algo, métase en los rompecabezas, ¿ok? Sea un artista, juegue juegos, todo lo que tenga que ver con su mente, constantemente estar ocupada, ¿ok? Haciendo actividades. Es una de las maneras más importantes para asegurarse que que esta enfermedad, no que se le asegure, pero que ayuda bastante a que esa enfermedad le llegue, si es que le va a llegar mucho tarde en la vida. Pero estos son buenos consejos que se le está dando. Y por último, ¿es this the last one?
Mental health, yeah.
Ok. Es su salud mental, ¿ok? Su salud mental, esta que está aquí, ok. Cuide su salud mental. Algunos estudios vinculan un historial de depresión con un mayor riesgo de deterioro de la mente, y por lo tanto busque tratamiento médico si tiene síntomas de depresión, ansiedad o otros problemas de salud mental, ¿ok? Así que trate también por controlar el estrés, porque el estrés definitivamente no es bueno para nuestro cerebro, para nuestra mente, y asegurarnos de que no nos dé esta enfermedad, ¿ok? Is there something else that you would like to say at this time?
Thank you for doing all that. Appreciate it.
Did we
Gracias.
cover
Gracias.
everything?
I just want to make sure people know to call us if they need to. We don't want them to be alone, and reach out for help. And we can also help you learn how to communicate better with your person with dementia.
Okay. So, le quiero decir que si alguien necesita, por favor, póngase en contacto con nosotros, y especialmente para nosotros ayudarle en cómo comunicarse mejor con una persona que tenga demencia o que tenga Alzheimer's.
I think the biggest thing that I would like to show is that you need to go into their reality. They have a brain disease and they can't come into yours.
Okay. Y lo que quiero enseñarle es que la importancia de ir a su mundo, porque ellos definitivamente no pueden venir al suyo, ¿ok? So, que vaya al mundo de la persona que tiene la enfermedad, porque ellos no pueden venir al mundo de la persona que lo está cuidando, ¿ok? Y esas son una de las cosas que nosotros le enseñamos y le ayudamos para que así pueda tener una vida más tranquila con esa persona que usted ama mucho. What was one of the most difficult things that you had to deal with your mother, that was shocking for you when your mother got this disease and dealing with it?
So much.
Tantas cosas. No, yo le pregunté que cuál era la cosa más difícil, porque estos son seres queridos, su propia madre. Nosotros amamos las madres de nosotros más que amamos a cualquier otro ser humano. So, yo le pregunté a ella que cuál fue la cosa más difícil para ella lidiar con su mamá que le dio esta enfermedad a una edad tan joven.
Two things.
Dos cosas.
Watching her go away so young.
Verla que ella se fue tan joven.
That was hard.
Eso fue muy difícil.
And not correcting her. Letting her say something even if it's not right, or do something even if, as long as she doesn't hurt herself.
No corrigiéndola, dejándola a ella que haga lo que ella quiera hacer.
Because it doesn't harm them or you. It's just where they are. Again, you have to go into their world.
Ok. Tienen que ir al mundo de ellos. Ok. Ellos no pueden venir al mundo de uno, pero uno tiene que ir al mundo de ellos. I always thought that, I didn't know that that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. Correcting them doesn't give us any, it makes you agitated, it makes them agitated.
Ok. So, yo no sabía eso. Yo creía que uno está supuesto a corregirlos, ¿ok? Entonces, pero ella está diciendo que no. Nosotros no podemos estar corrigiéndolo a ellos porque ellos en realidad no están entendiendo. Recuérdese, tenemos que ir al mundo de ellos porque ellos no pueden venir al mundo de nosotros.
So, for example,
Por ejemplo,
Mom says, we need to go to the doctor today, it's Tuesday.
Mami dice, tenemos que ir al doctor hoy, es martes.
But it was not Tuesday, it was Wednesday.
No era martes, era miércoles.
And we said, oh, doctor is sick himself. You and I will get ice cream.
Okay. Entonces nosotros decíamos, ay, el doctor está enfermo, así que tú y yo vámonos a buscar helado, vamos a comer helado.
It's a distraction technique.
Es un técnico que se llama distracción. Okay? I think I learned something today because I thought we had to correct them. We had
They
to let them
can't
know.
come back into what it is. So as long as they're not hurting themselves,
Okay.
it's okay.
Después que ellos no se están hiriendo a ellos mismos, lo que ellos digan y hagan está bien. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Anytime anyone wants to call us, please
Yes.
do. Please reach out.
Bueno,
Yeah.
cualquier tiempo que pueden llamarlo o ponerse en contacto con ellos, por favor hágalo al 1-800-272-3900. Talk about
Yes, the class.
the thing you have available for the people to pick up.
Oh,
the
yes.
brochure.
We have brochures and other information in Spanish that we will leave here at La Voz Hispana.
Ok, tenemos aquí un brochure, ok, un panfleto que vamos a dejar aquí en La Voz Hispana, por si acaso cualquier persona lo quiere. Lo tenemos en español, ok, pero definitivamente, si usted está pasando por esta situación, ok, y encuentra que este programa le ha ayudado a ustedes darse de cuenta, porque yo, por ejemplo, hoy aprendí bastante de esta enfermedad, porque en realidad no sabía mucho de esto, ¿ok? Sí tengo a tías que le dio esta enfermedad, pero en realidad no le hacía caso porque no conocía la enfermedad. Se nos está dando la oportunidad de aprender de esta enfermedad para que así entonces nosotros podamos ayudar mejor a nuestros seres queridos. Okay? Thank you so much for being here
Thank you,
with
and
us
join us at
today.
the Walk in the Fall at Lighthouse Point Park. our
Sí,
Walk
por
to End
favor.
Alzheimer's.
Y sería bueno si por favor todos ustedes en junio pueden ir, que es cuando ellos recaudan fondos, y es en el parque de Lighthouse. Ahí es donde ellos andan. How do you raise the money?
People can donate online, alz.org/walk.
Ok, las personas pueden donar dinero en línea a
.org/walk.
.org/walk, ok, andar, ok.
And people can join a team and then fundraise and then come that day.
Tell us a little bit about that. Yo quisiera entender un poquito más las específicas de cómo es que ellos recaudan dinero durante este tiempo, ¿ok? So, how does it work?
Yeah, so people start a team online,
Ok, se hace un equipo en línea.
ask people to donate to your team,
Ustedes le piden a las personas que donen al equipo de ustedes.
and then you just go walk on that day with your beautiful flowers with all other people who understand.
Ok, y ese día ustedes van a andar en el Parque Lighthouse con bellas flores, con personas que entienden.
Yeah.
Bueno, muchas gracias por estar hoy con nosotros. Esto fue un placer, ¿ok? Bueno, inafortunadamente el tiempo se nos va tan rápidamente, ¿verdad que sí? Pero quiero recordarle nuevamente que ustedes están escuchando a WNHH 103.5 FM, La Voz Hispana Radio desde Downtown New Haven. También nos pueden ver a través de Facebook Live, YouTube y Twitter. Y quiero darle la gracia a nuestro nuevo station manager. Okay, thank you so much for job well done, José Candelario.
Yes.
Gracias por un trabajo bien hecho. Se despide de ustedes Norma Rodríguez Reyes en el show K-Pasa. Salud, dinero, amor y tiempo para disfrutarlo, y que vivamos 120 años en buena salud. Hasta la próxima. Gracias.
Gracias.
Menos del 10% de los niños de entre 5 y 10 años están